Hi, everyone. It's Marcy here with Dinah, and you'll never believe who I have. Unfortunately, she's not on camera, a little technical issue, but that's okay because we'll hear her. The infamous Lori Hamm from Montana, Notary Public Administrator and Notary Guru, friend to all. Hi, Lori.
Hi, Marcy.
How
Um,
are
uh,
you?
I am wonderful, and I'm so delighted to be joining you today. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so happy to have you. I am excited because as everyone knows, I know enough about apostilles to be dangerous, but it is a topic out there. And I just spoke to Judy Lawrence a little bit about the general idea of what apostilles are. So this is so timely because I want to talk to you about this whole e-apostille program. So can you tell for anyone who doesn't know what apostilles are, can you tell them just a little bit about like what they are, what their function is?
Okay, apostilles are a, a function of the need for international commerce to exist between nations in such a way that the paperwork can be utilized, when it goes from one country to another. Um, Judy Lawrence and Bill Soroka are very involved in this, and they uh, came up with absolutely the best way to describe and define an apostille or even an authentication for non-Hague countries. They're passports for documents. I mean, when we as individuals have to go to another country for whatever purpose, we have to have a passport and generally a visa. Okay, it's something that tells the other country that, hey, this person is a real person, they're a citizen of the United States, and you can let them into your country. They're good. An apostille is simply a passport for a document that has to go from one country to another. It's the apostille as a specific terminology and specific uh, concept grew out of, the process that happened before the Hague Convention, where documents had to, a whole level of stuff. And it's still basically the authentication process that non-Hague country documents where you get them notarized. The notary signature gets validated by the commissioning authority or the assigned authority to do that. Then it goes to the Department of State, who says, yeah, the Secretary of State of Montana is the authority to validate the signature of the notary from Montana. Just layers of bureaucracy all the way up. And, the notary validates signature on the document, the SOS validates the notary, the State Department validates the SOS, the embassy validates the State Department. God only knows where it went there. Just how to make something so important to international transactions just a true cluster. And in the early 60s, the Hague Conference, and I don't know the whole history of them, but they already existed to do some stuff. They came up with this convention, the FSD convention, that said, okay, if you're a member country, we kind of already know who you are as a country. You're good guys. We're good with it. Let's simplify this process. It's a document gets notarized or signed by a recognized notarial official in a country or a state. And state, in terms of the convention, actually means country. But in the US, we have to kind of use the word country and state because it gets real confusing. So the United States, as a member to the Hague Convention, designated an official in every state. Generally, the official office that commissions notaries is the competent authority for each individual state in the United States. Other countries generally just have one or maybe a handful of competent authorities to validate their notarial officers. And the agreement, the convention that was accepted by the members is that once that competent authority validates the signature on the underlying document, then every other member state will recognize that as being an acceptable document. They've got the passport in one step at that point. So that's what an FSD is. It gets your paperwork into the other country so it can be accepted. And when you're talking about the breadth of documents, I think as a quote unquote competent authority, and I love that because I've never been called a competent authority on anything. It's saying that a document that's being used in a court case in another country, this document can be used as evidence for whatever side. We all know, the FBI background checks and all of that people use to get visas, particularly for extended stays in countries. All of, it makes it so much simpler. So it's validating the authenticity of a document. One thing that it is really important to understand is that it doesn't validate the contents of the document. It doesn't say that it's right. It doesn't say it's legal. Sort of like a notarization does not validate the contents of the document. It validates the signature. And the apostille is just that next layer that says, this is an authentic document. It was signed by this person. It was notarized by this person, whatever. And so you can accept it as authentic, whether it's legal, whether it's accurate, whether it's true. That's yet to be determined at your end. So it's only a step.
That. That's my pet peeve in the notary world. When notaries say, I notarize document, we legalize documents. And I was like, if the contents weren't legal before, my notarizing it doesn't make it any more legal or valid. That's not what we do. So I love that you said that about not only notarizations but apostilles, because I think sometimes notaries are very involved in the apostille world, but it's not a notarial act, right? So
exactly.
That is where I think the hang up comes a little bit every once in a while, where because we facilitate, these types of transactions, and sometimes the documents, which I love that you said about the FBI background check, sometimes the documents are notarized documents, but many times they are not notarized documents, right? I mean,
no, right. They're signed by a person who has notarial authority to sign that particular document. And the FBI background checks are a great example of that, because I think we've all seen them. The FBI background checks, I think now they're all signed by some dude, Chris Armando or somebody. I could write his signature. I'm not sure. But just like a birth certificate in your state, it's signed by your state vital records registrar or whatever. That is a notarial act on their part, actually, but they're not notaries public. They are authorized to officially sign certain documents. Clerks of court can sign court records, marriage certificate, whatever it is in each state. There are lots of people who can perform notarial acts that are not notaries public. I mean, that's something that catches a lot of people upside the head, really. And yet, I think it's in every state. There's probably a section in the code that talks about, notarial officers and what their duties are, and there's almost always a subsection that says, or anybody who has been charged with the authority to sign them. Okay, and what our responsibility as a competent authority in this process is to be able to validate the signatures of the notarial officers or officials. So not just notaries public, but your vital records people, the clerks of court, clerks and recorders. There's a whole raft of signatures that we have to, be able to recognize and validate to issue an apostille. And then once we get that document, we review it, we do compare signatures and issue the apostille or even the authentication. What it says is this underlying document, which was issued in the United States, in the state of Montana, bears the signature and seal of, Susie Smith, acting in the capacity of notary public or clerk of court or whatever their capacity is, bears their seal and what date. All it's doing is repeating that relevant information that is on the document relative to the notarial official. And that's enough under the terms of the treaty, the Apostille Convention, for the other state to say, great, this is a good document, we'll take it now and do whatever is appropriate. So, nutshell, that's the story.
And that's a lot. So now typically, we would, it's paper. We love paper in every industry. We're not really a paperless society quite yet. But those documents would then be sent paper-wise, either walked in the Secretary of State or sent by, overnight express. But now there's this EFSd program. So now how does that work? What does that really entail?
That's the magic part, right? Okay, we're all completely used to emails.
Yes.
And we're pretty much used to getting documents electronically, and we don't think anything of it. And, this is the EFSD is just continuing the thread electronically. Obviously, the technology is fairly sophisticated, although the technology has been around for a long time. The e-apostille program at The Hague came into being in 2006. We're going on 20 years. This isn't brand new, but it has taken a long time to get adopted for a lot of reasons. A lot of it, 20 years ago, emails weren't, we were sending little messages back and forth in the office and maybe to a few friends, but we weren't sending documents in mass. That's an evolutionary thing. And now it's really hard to remember when we didn't have inboxes full of attachments, but we didn't back then. But actually, I believe it was Spain was really the first country to adopt the e-apostille right around 2008. Kind of thing. And it's been growing very slowly.
As does everything when it's related to government, right? And that's not unusual. It's not, there's anything wrong with the program. It's just, bureaucracy, right?
It's bureaucracy. It's also a cultural thing. As you said, we love paper. We want to touch it. We want to feel it. We want to smush it up and crumble it and throw it at somebody, Paper, you can do that. Email attachment, if you really had a bad day, you really can't, bounce it off your cube walls. It's not going to do. So, it's a human thing and then you combine it with the technology and a certain reluctance to accept an easy way out. That human, that's too good to be true kind of mentality. It can't possibly be all of that. You just know
that easy. It can't be that easy.
Can't be that easy. It can't be that good. So I'm missing something, and I'm not quite trusting it. So, for the most part, e-apostilles have been out there as a concept. The folks at The Hague, Christophe Bernasconi, the Secretary General, has been pushing it up the mountain for almost 20 years. And it's growing, but it's growing slowly. And one of the discussions I had several years ago, when Dr. Bernasconi spoke at one of the Notary Public Administrators meetings, was that, you know, until the United States adopts it, it's really not going to go. You know, these other countries don't have the volume, they don't have the prestige to really light the fire. You know, I thought, okay, well, yeah. And you have to understand that I absolutely hate processing apostilles.
You
I find
do?
them, I do. They're in my capacity in the SOS office. It's the stress. Are the, you know, do I have all the documents? Did they get lost in the mail? I'm talking to these people, and, you know, the customers generally have virtually no clue what this all is about.
Sure.
Very often they don't speak English. They're not, you know, the whole thing is just incredibly vague and incomprehensible to the people that we're working with, to our customers. And, you know, getting all the pieces together and making sure they're right, and making sure that they all get done correctly. And, you know, and if you staple the apostille that you just printed out to the wrong piece of paper, then you've got staple holes and it could get rejected. And I mean, it's just a really stressful process in paper. And it always has been for me.
And we were just talking about it with Judy, you know, we were talking about individuals who get out there who facilitate these things, notaries, not knowing what they're doing. And, you know, the delay in getting an apostille for some people could be detrimental depending on what they need that documentation for. You know, if you submitted it and it takes 3 or 4 or 5 weeks to get it back and you made an error, there was a problem, that's just,
you start all over if it gets lost in the mail.
Yeah.
And let's be real honest. When you send documents to, you know, small little villages in the middle of Timbuktu, you know, the odds are pretty high that something gets lost, doesn't get delivered. I mean, it just, the way that world operates, and it's just, it's a stress that really gets to me. I just, you know, I do them, I've done them for years, but I've always, you know, I've always looked for a better way to do it. You know, so when I heard about the apostilles years ago, I'm going, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. And, you know, so, you know, I've just kind of followed along with it for a while. In 2015, Montana enacted a very limited RON law. So it was totally jurisdictional within the state of Montana, but we learned a lot of things about RON in reality that, you know, we didn't see in all the theoretical discussions that we'd had for years. So when we were getting ready then for the 2019 Montana legislature, I wanted to put in the permanent RON laws. So I got, you know, the great minds, you know, Tim Reiniger, Bill Anderson, Kathleen Butler, Mark Aronson, all the people who have been dealing with this all along, that my notary administrators, you know, from all over that had, you know, dealing with the online stuff, the folks from the ULC. So I said, okay, I want Montana's new notary law to be designed in such a way that it becomes very technology adaptable. We don't have to go back to the legislature every time we need to change something. One, you know, I want the guardrails there that we have to have, but I don't want to have to go messing with it every 2 years, because that's just asking for trouble. So I think we got a great law in place, and it was, you know, certainly allowed for the electronic apostilles to be incorporated without any kind of changes in our law, which was lovely, because we were able to, the main part of that is that we were able to validate the RON signatures, our electronic notary signatures. We have no problem validating those in Montana, because in Montana, your electronic signature has to be a secure digitized image of your handwritten signature. So it really has to look pretty much the same as it's going to look on a wet ink.
And
So
same
it's
here in New
very easy.
York. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of other states kind of took, because the original Ron laws had just the digital certificate, which, you know, seriously, if you're into fraud, anybody could have access to your digital signature. And so, and the other side of it being, it's real hard for the competent authority to validate that if the platform goes out of business and you can't,
Right.
just a lot of things. So
Sure.
that's one of the little things that we got in our law that caused a lot of consternation by some of the platform providers at the time. And I just kind of said, well, tough. And I am so glad we did, because that has made the transition to EFSDs completely easy for our office. Some states are still dealing with not being able to issue FSDs on RON documents, even if they're printed out, which is too bad. Okay, we'll kind of get off that track right now. But
well, but that brings the forefront. Like, not every state allows, right? Like, not every. So Montana allows for e-apps, but like, how many states are currently in the U.S. doing e-FSDs?
Okay, right now, Kentucky invented their own program.
Okay.
Internally, and I don't know how many they've done exactly yet. In August, when they were part of the symposium here in Montana, they had just issued, a handful, and I think they've done a few more since then, but they're still dealing in, probably, less than a few dozen that they've issued yet. What I did and was able to do was get involved with a private sector platform group that invented and so they invented a platform that other states have, come onto. We were the guinea pig, and we've been actually producing EFSDs now for a little over a year and a half. They've really hit their stride. We've done over 1,000 this year.
Oh, wow.
Year to date. Yeah. And then there are 7 other states that are involved in the pilot program with the @gov platform: Rhode Island, Connecticut, Utah, Washington, Minnesota. Somebody else, can't remember. Anyway, they're at different levels of participation based on different. Some of them, still have to get some statutory changes going before they can go active, but they're definitely participating at entry level.
Okay.
I know Connecticut has actually issued some. Washington has issued a few. Utah is issuing EFSDs on their international marriage licenses. Las Vegas being a huge spot for people from all over the world to come to get married, and then they have to send the marriage licenses to whatever country so they can register in their home country. So Utah's been doing marriage licenses fairly prolifically. So, it's coming on board, but this has been, kind of a multi-tiered approach in terms of, yes, technology, but more importantly, workflow processes. Because in the paper world, it's the workflow that is so complex and so hard to get a handle on. You've got documents coming from the customer, from other government agencies, from the customer's friend. They're coming from anywhere in the world. You don't know when they're coming. You get the order here, you get the money there, you get the paper here. And some of the orders have multiple documents. It's, the orders that are one document, one apostille off those aren't bad. But you've got somebody who is, moving a family to a foreign country for work, and you've got 5 or 6 people that have to get their extended visas. You've got birth certificates, marriage certificates, social security documents, bank statements, all this stuff that they need to have. And America is a very mobile society. So you inevitably have documents coming from multiple states. So, part of my mission to spread the gospel and get EAPs accepted and processed in every state is because of that. Right now there are just some things we can't do. But, leading directly to your question, what if you are in a state that does not offer an electronic apostille, but you've got a customer who's really under the gun, has to get some documents, and frequently we're talking business records, that kind of thing. So,
Right. Yeah.
for business transactions, that's the magic of Ron. And this is where, I've got a couple of our very, very experienced, very knowledgeable Montana remote online notaries, Christy Strofe, Pups, and Dustin Caldwell is another one. Michelle Abbott's getting up there, Kate Gamble. And I can put, if your people need this, please give me a call and we'll get you put together so you can get it done for your customer. But basically, you can have a Montana notary do the notarization on the document remotely. And then we can do the electronic apostille on it. And then it goes to wherever. So the process can be done. We're averaging now on transactions from initial customer contact where they say, I need this apostille and I need it yesterday, to when the electronic apostille is in the other country and accepted is less than 48 hours on average. We've done them in 2 hours on a real push one.
Well, and that's amazing.
That's
right?
amazing. Because
there are times where it is time of the essence for that individual, depending on, what the need is for them. So going
absolutely.
from a potential 2 or 3 or 4 week turnaround time to 2 hours, I mean, that's amazing.
Pretty amazing. One of the very first success stories we had, when we finally figured out what the magic part of this all was for the acceptance end of it, was a notary in California. I think some of your people may know Kristen Weiss in California. Yeah. Okay. She had a customer, I think the customer's mother was in Virginia. The daughter was in Spain. Her visa had expired and they weren't letting her do anything. She couldn't leave her apartment. She couldn't bank. She couldn't go to school. They wouldn't let her out of the country because she didn't have it. And mom was going nuts, really scared. They had ordered the FBI background check. It was back in the day when the background check process was taking, 14 weeks on average-ish.
Yeah.
They had ordered it, but didn't have it yet. But they were supposed to be getting it any day. Kristen had heard about the EFSDs and, the conversation. So she reached out and she said, here's the situation. Here's what we've got. Can you do it? And so they got the electronic FBI background. Mom got that, I think the next day actually, and sent it to us. We did a notarization by of electronic file. That's allowed in Montana. You can do a certification of an electronic record under Montana law. And so I did that. I got the electronic file. I did the notarization. We did the EFSd, had it over in Spain, and it was accepted that same day. And then they granted her visa and the girl was able to go back to school. Everybody could breathe. Mom didn't have a heart attack. And, it was magic. Now, I'm going to put a caveat here and everybody really listen to this. We really are in gray areas doing FBI background check certifications. according to the State Department, our friend Bill Fritzland, it's perfectly legal for a notary to certify a copy of an FBI background check if your law allows that.
Okay.
It is not considered an official record like the naturalization certificate or birth certificate in your state or something. So unless you have some other kind of statutory prohibition, and your law does allow you to do a copy certification, either of a hard copy or electronic copy, whatever, it is legal to do that. However, now that the State Department has got their processing time down to about 3 or 4 weeks, some of the countries, Spain being one of them, Portugal being another, they're saying they want the FBI background checks authenticated or apostilled by the State Department, not at the state level. So they aren't accepting them right now unless you get special dispensation. But a lot of other countries are doing it. We're doing Brazil, we're doing Ecuador. South American countries are very good about accepting almost anything electronically. They're very, very good about that. And most of them are issuing e-apostilles. If you're interested in learning what states or what countries are issuing e-apostilles, it's on the hcch.net website, contracting parties, and then under the apostille convention, it's the EAPP program, and it'll tell you which countries. I think there are up to 125 countries now that
That's amazing.
Yeah, and there's a map. Africa, not there. Asia. Now, China has come on board. They're issuing e-apps, and they're very good about taking them. In fact, I think Montana was the first state to send an e-apostille to China on the day that their membership became effective. Because I had a customer who called me that morning. He was moving his family to China. He had gotten all the paperwork done, but his FBI background check was too old by the time, that story that got to be done within 90 days or something. Mm-hmm. So they wanted his redone. He had just gotten the file from the FBI that morning. He said, what can you do? I've got to have this because we're leaving like day after tomorrow. I offered the e-apostille to him. We did it that morning, had it in China that same day, and they took it. That very first day that China was a member of the apostille convention, November 8th. I remember that. November 7th.
We love that. So let me ask you this. Fun. Let's say we're in a state that doesn't allow for the e-apostille. What can we do? Who can we talk to? Who should we send a letter to? Like, how can we get a little more engagement in our state to move along in this technology-driven direction?
All right. Well, you have to work with your competent authority. So primarily the Secretary of State in most states. And, it depends. Okay, guys, it's a dirty word, politics. If your Secretary of State is elected, guess where their pressure point is? Votes. They want, public. So that's where, getting the voice of the notary community, the expat community, the people, lawyers, anybody who does apostilles. This is so much simpler. There's no reason not to at least have the option of doing it. So Melissa Gardner down in Florida just sent out a petition. She just created a little petition and she's sending it out to everybody and she wants signatures. She's going to gather them together and she's going to take them up to the Florida SOS and say, hey, we want you to get on board with this. It's important to our customers. It's, and that's the bottom line. We're not doing this because any one of us as notaries couldn't think of anything more fun to do. It's because there's a need out there for our customers to obtain apostilles on documents they have to send to other countries. And there, there is the need for it to be done quickly and efficiently, and the electronic apostille is the vehicle to do that the most expeditiously. So, use the power of your vote, get people together, send letters, if you can do, I think the idea of a petition where they're kind of getting it, in a stack is going to make a little bit more of an impact on them. But, if you are involved in the politics in your communities and in your states, let your legislators know about it. Because again, apostille is a foreign word to anybody who hasn't had to do it. So you have to educate them. Here's what it is. And I go back, Bill and Judy using that term of a passport for a document. It resonates with people. They can visualize it. An Article 3 certificate of the Hague Convention means nothing. A passport for a document kind of, okay, what's it look like? It's a piece of paper, or in the case of an electronic, it's an electronic image that's part of a file that has all of the components. So, that's, get a hold of the people who can make the difference. Now, just to put a little touch of reality on it in a timeline, the AtGov platform that has been in development for basically 3 years. We're going to go into the final phase of that pilot here within the next, well, hopefully by the end of December, with a month of testing in Montana. Montana will be the only state that's doing the testing on the platform, because we're doing the whole volume of documents, so it's just going to be a little easier to control and do the testing by one person. But hopefully by mid-February, the platform is up for grabs for any state that wants to get involved. And, then it's a case of, get in line at the ice cream store, and when your number comes up, they'll give you an ice cream cone. It's a very robust platform, and I know everybody's anxious to get it on board. The other 6-7 states that are in some point in the platform, they'll be allowed first if they're ready for it. But I know one of the goals is obviously to address where the demand is highest, which means the big states. So New York, Florida, Texas, California, Washington, Oregon. That's where the volume of apostilles are coming from. So, I know that would be a priority, depending on, if your Secretary of State or whoever your competent authority is on board. So that's the key. That's the key person to get a hold of and generate the interest. And then start talking the details.
Keeping in mind, so here, like in New York, our Secretary of State is appointed, not elected. But I still think the petition idea isn't a bad one. And I might ask the people who are coming to me to get an apostille, hey, could you write a little note, right? Could you say how much easier this process may have been had I not had to wait all this time? Or, can you write a little note saying what you needed it for, what the importance of it was too? Because I think
absolutely, it's the stories that move people.
Yeah, especially when it comes to those kinds of things, right? When we're out there trying to deal with government, sometimes it's all about, talk about the bureaucracy, the red tape, like what will it cost to implement this program? Who will be in charge of it? I think we forget the story of why this is necessary to begin with. So exactly. I wouldn't say
I shared Kristen's customer story, the gal in Spain, just yesterday. Honest, I've been working with a customer since April of this year. They're trying to adopt in India. Okay, any of you who have ever dealt with a customer who's doing an international adoption, generally that process, the pre-adoption dossiers, takes a year to a year and a half, right? Okay, we've done this for India. The first day I talked to this gal was on April 4th. 4/4. This morning, we are sending the very last document for the pre-apostille, the pre-approval process to India. They'll have it today. They could literally, because they've already been assigned the kids, they've got twins, a boy and a girl. I mean, they could literally have those babies by Christmas.
Oh,
less than
that's
8
so
months.
amazing.
Less than 8 months, we're taking 2 little kids out of a miserable situation in an orphanage in India and putting them in a lovely, lovely home in Billings, Montana, with 2 people that are so, so sweet and so excited about this. I mean, that's a story.
That is a
That,
story.
it could have been 2 years at least before, with all the paperwork and the going back and forth. And, we had a couple of documents that had to be redone. The notarizations weren't correct the first time. We could get it redone in minutes. It was not a big deal. And again, Ron, we used because not everybody was in the United States. There were 3 documents that we had to do in paper, and those were the 3 birth certificates, mom, dad, and their existing child. We cannot at this point, but we've just about got the workaround figured out to do vital records documents. So hopefully early next year, those will be on the table too. But up to now, we haven't been able to do that. But even there, we had plenty of time in that 7-month stretch to get those documents in paper to India. So that didn't hold us up at all. It was all the other stuff. And so, like I said, we're just the last 2 documents get to them today. And those were the okay from the State Department, the Article 5 letters, which are the last ones to go. And those go in today. And, we'll see. We've got fingers crossed and what's going on.
Fingers crossed over here too. I love that story. But I
But
think
those are the stories that move people, because it you see the result. I mean, okay, you said pay from point A to point B in 2 days. Oh, yay. But hey, you made it possible for a kid to get into a school. I don't know how many notaries get involved in it.
Oh no, Lori. I think, oh, there you go. You're back.
Okay, yeah, my earbud fell out. God. Anyway, the foreign exchange students that come over to the United States for a year, all of their paperwork has to be notarized, certified, apostille, sent back home. And very frequently, they can't start the next school year until that, and that has been known to hold kids out for a year, which is horrible. And, we, again, during our pilot this last year, we had one of our Great Falls schools. Every single one of them, from start to finish, the paperwork was in the kid's home country and approved before the kid got back. And so they knew everything was good, as opposed to some that we were still working on last month because they got lost. They didn't have a notarization the way the school wanted it. And I mean, all the stuff that can happen. It can be so frustrating.
All the things. There's so many.
But, if you're thinking in terms of doing a petition, that kind of thing, everybody can go on it. It doesn't have to be notaries. It doesn't have to be FSD agents. It's customers. It's your law firms. It's your banks. Everybody can be impacted by this.
Yeah, it's the business people. It's everyone, right? I think sometimes we get bogged
really
down in petitions. I know we did one to raise the notary fee here in New York, and we talked to notaries, then we were like, this is silly. We should be talking to everybody. Like, if you find value in these things, then you should be able to have your voices heard. So, you get that greater representation, and it's not just one demographic then. So sometimes legislators want to see what's important to their constituents. If they see
Right.
it's a broad base of people who are interested in this topic, they're more likely, to try to move that legislation forward.
Exactly. Exactly.
Lori, you're
So,
amazing. We love talking to you.
oh, well, thank you for giving me the soapbox, because this is something I really do love. And now that we've done it, I really do see the magic, understand the magic. And again, right now, we still are in that transition period. But if any of your notaries are in a situation where they want to, they have a customer who has that urgent need, or it's just a big thing, reach out to me. And I'll see how we can make it happen most expeditiously, because that's to all of our benefit. The more we do, the more the demand is, the more it's going to be accepted. One little stat I'll share with you.
Yeah.
We have, of the over 1,000 EFSDs that we have issued for Montana, we have only had one that was sort of rejected. That's a big issue. People are going, but what if they don't take it? What if, because, there are a couple that have been questioned, and I've had to go back, and I have this little letter that I send out to people saying, okay, here's the rules of the treaty, and you don't get to reject the EFSD just because it's electronic. So, once you explain and educate, and that's the biggest challenge we all face in this whole thing, educating ourselves, educating the public, the customer, educating the recipient. But once they know, the acceptance rate is humongous. And actually, the one that was not sort of accepted, they accepted the apostille because they had to, but they claimed that the law in Hungary did not allow them to accept an electronic document, which is not true. They can't quote me the sites. I'm still working on it, but we went ahead and issued the paper on that one just so I didn't have to deal with it daily. But I'm still working on it, because again, that opportunity for educating them and making sure that some bureaucrat down the food chain in, XYZ country hasn't had a chance to learn about it yet. And that's what this is all about, educating everybody. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share the message and the gospel. And, and again, if I can be of any help to anybody, I am absolutely delighted to have that opportunity.
Well, I learned a ton today, and I know our audience out there has learned a ton as well. And I appreciate all you do for the notary community, along with obviously the apostille community. You are a legend, and we're so excited to be able to have you here. For everyone out there, Lori is super accessible. So please, if she says to you, reach out to her. She really honestly means that. Thank you,
Yeah.
Lori, again so much for talking to us today. I really appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. And what you do is awesome. So thank you for being such a leader in your state and your community. And we're gonna turn this whole thing right side up, right?
We're gonna try. We're gonna try 100%.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
Thanks
There is
everyone
no
out
try.
there. We'll
Bye,
see you on the
everybody.
next one. Have a great day.